What's up? It's me back again, Analog Attack. Welcome to the next episode of Piece of Maiden. Chris is here as always. How you doing, Chris?
I'm all right.
You all
We
right?
are pretty deep in this now. This is what
Deep. And this won't be broadcast for about a month or so, but I think we're like 10, episode 10. Welcome to episode 10 of Piece of Maiden.
Geez, you're right. Episode 10.
Episode 10. We'll probably upload this in about a month, but we're doing it now.
World could be a different place by then.
It could be, so that's why we're getting them all in. We don't know what might happen, right? So, Brave New World, Chris.
This is it.
You got the proper one.
Look at that thing.
Look at that tiny little thing. I've had this little bad boy for quite a while now. Just a random like US CD, but this is how I've been listening to it. Yeah. So 2000, as always. This is a kind of interesting year. The year 2000. What were you doing in the year 2000?
I was in my first year of college. Well, I went to college in 1999.
Okay.
I was deeply immersed in the hardcore scene.
Oh, I kind of just moved to Japan and deeply immersed in like 100-hour a week working at a hotel and blah, blah, blah. No time for music.
No time for music, huh?
Not much. Nah.
That's
But
too bad.
enough of that. Enough of that. 2000. Let's have a look at what was going on in the world of heavy metal in 2000. And I do have a small stack of records from my collection that I can show. So let's have a little look, shall we, Chris? This is good, actually. I like this. AC/DC.
Stiff Upper Lip.
Isn't that funny?
That's one of the arguably the best of the later day.
It's funny, right? Just totally not caring about any trends that are going on, like this real, just bluesy hard rock album.
They had a real comeback, kind of in the same way as Maiden.
Yeah, it's a good album. So AC/DC, Stiff Upper Lip, and then right at the other end of the scale, Electric Wizard.
One of their best.
The Dope Throne on Rise Above Records from the UK.
Sir.
Excellent. Heavy record. Oh, here we are, Chris. This will cheer you up. Our old mates Enslaved are back on the scene with Realm, Beyond the Within. Nice progressive black metal album.
When is Enslaved gonna first pop up? Is it gonna be on the virtual X Factor episode? Will that be the first Enslaved album that we see?
We've seen a whole bunch of Enslaved, right?
No, I mean chronologically. Chronologically. When do they get going? 93, 94?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, maybe. We'll see. I'll check that out. That's a good point. Yeah.
Okay.
Look, that's something to look forward to.
They're really the glue holding this YouTube series together.
We couldn't do it without them and without these.
Yes. They're sort of the two sides of the Velcro, the soft and the crunchy side.
But you're right.
Yeah, that's a good one. Horrible looking cover art. Just awful.
EP records. There's different artwork right on some.
Yeah, also bad. I've never seen a good cover on this album, but has some of their best songs.
I love this album.
Yeah.
And then I like this one too. I'm an easy guy to please. It's like Immolation. World, but this is one of my favorite Immolation records. Actually, it's a good one. A bit late in the career, but pretty good.
I don't think I've heard more than one Immolation record, so it would be impossible for me to have favorites plural because I'm only familiar with that one.
And then Immortal were out with one of their kind of weaker albums.
A very spooky year.
Damned in Black.
Okay.
Immortal.
How is that? Is that black and roll or is it?
It's a little bit more like they had a bit more of like a thrash metal feel on this record. So maybe
Yeah, maybe that's the one for me.
Maybe it could be. I was going to say, people don't like this one so much, but I actually quite like it.
I like the early Immortal records.
Scary Band.
Yes.
Morbid Angel. Scary.
Oh yes, horrifying stuff.
The Gateways of Annihilation. still on Earache Records. My favorite band of all time, maybe Motorhead. We're back with We Are Motorhead. Not one of my favorite Motorhead albums, to be honest with you.
Yeah, this one's pretty low on the scale.
Right. And this is a big favorite of mine, actually. The Orange Goblin.
Is that Time Traveling Blues?
It's the Big Black. It's actually one
of okay.
Orange Goblin records. And then this is kind of sets the tone, or the death tone, if you will, for the year. White Pony from the Deftones.
Oh yeah.
I like this record. It's only Deftones record I have in my collection, but there's a time and a place for this record. It's not now.
I mean, I think that's clearly the best Deftones record, but they are not the band for me.
Yeah. So, they're records from my collection, but apart from that, there was a whole lot of new metal going on right in the year 2000. And Blaze Bayley had a solo album too, called the Silicone Messiah.
Yes, the Silicone Messiah. We're gonna have to talk a little bit about that.
Okay, cool. And then Paul Di'Anno also had an album called The No.
Oh, Mike. Oh no, we got to redo the whole Power Slave episode. I just realized the first Di'Anno solo record came out in '84.
It did actually. I saw it on the list, but I don't have it. I only have the Battlezone album. So yeah.
We'll have to do a Iron Maiden Expanded Universe episode where we talk about all the terrible solo albums. Okay. So metal in 2000.
It's important though, right? This is an important, especially in this episode, maybe like the state of heavy metal in the year 2000.
You know what I think of is Metallica at this time, and they didn't have an album in 2000, but they had a song that was a hit in America,
right?
And it was on the Mission Impossible 2 soundtrack.
Okay.
And it's called I Disappear. Just absolute trash. I mean, it's radio rock, and I think that is a lot of the state of metal at this time. And unfortunately, I think there's some accidental radio rock tendencies in this Iron Maiden album we're going to get into.
I think taking all things in, we have to kind of take all this into consideration when we talk about this album, I think, and we'll get to that.
So what's had you even thought about Iron Maiden in the year 2000?
No, as I said, I just moved to Japan. I probably didn't even know they existed. I probably didn't even think about them at all. No, I mean, this was a complete mystery to me. Absolutely off the radar. Probably, I think, you know what? I said before that it was Book of Souls that made me go back and buy a bunch, but actually it wasn't. It kind of was, and it wasn't. It was, but actually I had already checked out some of the other albums before Book of Souls, and this was one of them actually. But just I had the CD. I was too busy. I didn't really listen to it very much. You know how it is. But I've been, as I always do, for the purposes of this episode, I've listened to this album. I've lost count actually. A lot of hours invested in this episode. So, but I think, as with a couple of other albums like we've talked about, it was kind of worthwhile. But you have a different perspective, right? Because you're kind of really familiar with it right from the get-go, right?
Well, a couple friends of mine at the time bought it basically new. I remember seeing the promo stuff for Fear of the Dark in '92 at the record shop that was very close to where I grew up, and my dad would take me there, and I remember seeing the Fear of the Dark posters, and I think that was the first time I realized that Iron Maiden wasn't just a t-shirt company, but was an actual band that had albums. But I didn't hear Fear of the Dark. I saw, I was like, oh man, pretty scary. And then Brave New World came out, and I remember people having it, and at that point I know I had heard Number of the Beast, and so I was aware there was an 80s metal band, Iron Maiden, that had made Number of the Beast, but I hadn't given any thought to what they were doing currently. And then this new album came out, and I remember hearing it and being like, yeah, this is really pretty good. This sounds just just like their old stuff, but with a fresh modern twist on it. I'm not. This is absolutely not facetious. I was like,
No.
this record, yeah, this sounds good. And I think, especially for people around that age, a little younger and a little older, but basically of my generation, kids who were born in the 80s or late 70s, who were just becoming adults then, or were just becoming teenagers. Brave New World was the record that sort of like reintroduced Iron Maiden to all these people.
Yeah.
And it was sort of the right thing at the right time, because as we get into the tracks, I think, like I said, there's a lot of like kind of like leftover radio rock melodies and even like structures and tropes from the 90s. And I am thinking about like Metallica Load era, but also stuff like Creed almost, just in terms of like the construction of the melodies that they use. Kind of like the really like the post grunge stuff that's really like still reviled to this day, more so than new metal, although there are some sort of new metal-y things going on under the surface. And it's sort of like they take like some of the spare parts of like what was popular music at the time and then Maidenize it. And I don't know how intentional that was, but I do think they were trying to sort of, I mean, at that point they were not seen as a nostalgia act, so they were trying to remain contemporary. And I mean, the big story was that Bruce Dickinson and Adrian Smith, who had left the band Adrian left in 89 and Bruce left in 93, and they had both returned.
Yes.
Prodigal sons, as it were. So
yeah,
they came back and they delivered this new album, and it did sort of feel like a fresh take on the old Maiden.
It must have been quite exciting, I would have thought, as if you know, and a sort of Iron Maiden fan who really followed them right through that decade, and then Bruce and Adrian coming back. It must have been pretty big news right at that time. Exciting news, I would have thought.
I feel like it was a big deal. When I was flipping through one of Popoff's books, he was kind of downplaying it a little, but it felt like this was a big album. It did not feel like sort of, I don't know, a lot of times, like, you know, the old singer comes back and the band puts out an album and people are just like, yeah, great, good for you, moving on. But it felt like this album was around everywhere for a while. It seemed like people were into it. I don't know. It seemed like it did exactly what it needed to do. Because like I said, I wasn't even aware that Blaze Bayley had been in the band, or that the band had sort of fallen on hard times. I was just like, yeah, Iron Maiden, they were a band in the 80s. Now they're a band now.
Yeah.
And they still sound like Iron Maiden. Imagine that.
Yeah, it's one of those things. A lot of people say it's their favorite Iron Maiden album. People who maybe it was the first album they heard, they really love it.
I imagine this was the first Iron Maiden album for a lot more people than you might think.
That's what I think too, and it got pretty good reviews too. Like, I'm going to read these because I think it's interesting.
Yeah, please give them to me.
Kerrang said it was truly towering, majestic, bombastic, titanic, so gloriously in your face you can almost feel its hot breath up your nostrils. That's Kerrang. Kerrang review. What else? Sputnik Music, one of the band's top albums, alongside the likes of Power Slave, Somewhere in Time, and Peace of Mind. And definitely the easiest album to get into since the band's glory days. Enemy trashed it. They said they can't keep up with contemporary acts such as Korn and Slipknot.
But that's Enemy was all in on, you know, that.
Yeah. So that's that. Like you can, it's of the age where there's a lot of online reviews for this record, so it's easy to check out. But yeah, I mean, yeah, my journey's different. It's pretty similar to the other ones. Not that familiar with it. I am now, and
I mean, I will say Bruce really sounds good on it. So some of the backstory is that Bruce and Adrian had actually been playing together for a few years at this point. They had just done a record called The Chemical Wedding. They also did an album together called Accident at Birth. And I don't think Adrian was doing a ton of writing on those records, but he was there. He was playing guitar and he was appearing for press with Bruce. And they were kind of talking about like, well, yeah, we're not just rehashing the old stuff. We're doing, we're bringing a new, fresh sound. It's almost like they carried over that kind of thing back to Iron Maiden. And they both, I mean, Bruce sounds really good on those solo records. They're a little more modern for the time sounding than this is.
Right.
And so I kind of think the both of them bring that energy back over here, and they just kind of like plug that into like what Maiden had started to develop with Blaze, which was sort of like the modern Maiden style, which is, we sometimes lament, you and I, these long intros and these very repeating songs. And they just sort of brought their like newer sensibilities to that. And I guess we didn't mention, but the heartwarming part of them basically firing Blaze. Well, for one thing, they didn't just throw him out in the cold. They gave him, I think, a little bit of notice, but also Rod Smallwood helped him secure a record deal for Silicone Messiah and sort of, gave him a little bit of access to the resources and, treated him like he was still a part of the family, which I really, that's nice. They didn't have to do that, in show business, like that's rare. And they didn't get rid of Yannick Gers at all. They just kept him. And that's really like the coolest thing, man.
Yeah, most bands probably wouldn't have done that, I think.
I don't think so either. And the thing that's maybe more impressive that gets glossed over a lot is when Yannick got brought in, he basically took over playing all of Adrian's parts.
Right.
Which makes sense because Adrian left. But when Adrian came back, Adrian essentially composed new parts for the song. I mean, not drastically, it's not like he was writing, rewriting these songs, but what he actually started doing is using guitars tuned like one or two steps down, and then doing some parts where he's actually doubling in a lower octave or doing some other arrangement for some of the older songs. So I think it's nice that they didn't just say like, oh, well, now you're both going to play those parts. That actually like Adrian had to come in and sort of like, like earn his keep a little bit and figure out a new thing to do. So I don't know. I think that's all like a cool backstory to it. And the other thing is, before this album came out, they went out on tour. They did the Ed Hunter tour.
That's it. Yeah.
To promote a CD-ROM video game. There's actually a lot of bootlegs of those shows, and they're really good. I mean, it's Maiden in the 90s, so it's not Live After Death, but the set list selection is really cool. It hits all the albums, and they were including songs from the Blaze albums, but with Bruce singing. Yeah. And they just sound fantastic. I mean,
I used to have this.
It's clear what was missing.
I used to have a double CD with like a live set and then like the game.
That's the Ed Hunter thing.
That's it.
they sound super energized on those shows. Bruce's voice sounds amazing, and it's the first time that everybody's seeing the 3 guitar Maiden. So it's just, I feel like you feel a certain energy there. Like it's really like the boys are back, and like they're doing it for real.
Right.
So that is the lead up to them
Let's have
recording
a look at
this
gorgeous thing.
Oh,
Funny,
boy.
2 artists involved, right? I got the Derek Riggs, which it doesn't look like a Derek Riggs.
I see it in the eyes and the teeth, the way he draws the.
Mm-hmm. So the top was done by Derek, and the bottom part was done by absolute, like, just a digital.
I believe it was done by George Lucas. In the did it right while he was making Attack of the Clones, because that's what it looks like.
You're not actually far off. Actually, it was done by a guy called Steve Stone, who does like role-playing games and like just Sound Warriors, like Gremlin interactive games, Percy Jackson books.
Look, I know that we've had some bad beats with some of these Maiden LP covers, so I don't even think this one is that bad.
No, I don't think so too. And I kind of like blues.
Well, especially on the LP, you can really see this is like some
really
CGI from the year 2000.
Okay,
it's not great.
It's kind of okay on the CD, because it's like, I can't believe I'm saying that. It's usually the other way around, right? But it's like on the CD, it's like not too bad. But
I mean, because at the time, that's the dominant format. It's probably they probably got proofs in CD size and we're like, oh yeah, this looks incredible.
Yeah. But Chris, just to cheer you up a little bit, don't you think it looks a little bit like this?
No, I mean,
skull looking down.
So, I see. I get what you're saying, but that's a beautiful airbrushed painting by one of the greatest bands of my time.
Sorry for
arguably their best album, certainly a better album than this.
Canadian punk band in Epsy. If you like Motorhead, check out this band. But I know
you could say metal punk. I believe some of the kids call it that these days.
Very tenuous similarity to Brave New World.
I like the orange better too. Orange is
hot as opposed to kind of icy cold. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the artwork. Digital. Steve Stone. He did an Armored Saint album too, actually, which kind of.
I'm afraid to look.
Yeah, I have to. It's okay. So that's the artwork. We've done the band personnel. Let's talk about the production a little bit and the recording of this album. It's another Kevin Shirley, right?
So this is the first Kevin Shirley.
That's true. Yeah.
And I read some speculation that when Bruce came back, one of the conditions was that they would get a real producer,
right?
Because they had always had Martin Birch, and then when Bruce left, Steve became the guy to produce. And not to spoil any subsequent episodes, but there's some problems with the albums that he produced, both in terms of the recording quality and those albums are pretty flabby in terms of just the songs are real long, and this has some of that problem too. But I think they really wanted. I imagine honestly the whole management team probably wanted someone in the room to be like, there to overrule Steve.
Right.
Especially with Bruce and Adrian coming back in, they're not going to have as much leverage now. And it's obvious that none of the other guys are going to, step in the way of whatever Steve wants. So they got Kevin Shirley. He is a radio rock kind of producer. Yeah. When I heard this album when it came out, and I hadn't really developed, I wasn't very discerning in terms of hearing stuff, and then I didn't listen to it for a while, maybe like 6 or 7 years. And when I went back to it, I thought that it sounded like a 90s hardcore production, and in a very bad way. This is one of the worst sounding ones.
Yeah,
not as bad as the two with Blaze.
Kind of bad, right?
Well, those just sound very rough and underproduced,
right?
And I'm sure I'll have some shit to say about that. But this one, I mean, the snare drum is that like just ear piercing, high tuned '90s snare, just so annoying. It sounds bad. The guitars all sound like very flat and like just kind of dead. I mean, it really sounds like, one of those like Victory Records things from the 90s. Just sonically. It's really not good. It does sound, I'll say the iTunes remaster and the subsequent from 2015 and the subsequent vinyl remastering for 2017, the Parfalone BMG remastering job does sound legitimately better because at least they filled out sort of the low bottom end a little bit.
That's good to hear. Okay.
And so it does sound, it sounds fuller than the original CD, which I think sounds pretty bad, although most things at this time sounded pretty bad. I think, Kevin Shirley, this is where he starts his thing where he just has them run a bunch of takes live. And I was watching the making of one of these albums. I think it was actually Dance of Death. And he really does have Bruce sing with the band as they're playing, in an isolation booth, but that's unusual. And that's like, I mean, I guess that's just how he gets these albums made. Obviously there is vocal overdubbing that goes on. But a lot of this stuff is played live a bunch of times and then chopped to bits and reassembled to get the master take.
Right.
And this is where he started it. And apparently the band loved that because they were used to it being a much more involved process on their end, and not really being aware that this guy, you can do it all in one shot. There might be some reasons not to. Maybe we'll get into that a little bit, but
one thing I was going to say was we kind of talked about the cheap sounding keyboards and stuff, and I did notice that there's someone who's credited with orchestration on this album.
Yeah.
Jeff Bova.
I wonder how much of that I wonder how much of that is orchestration and orchestration.
I looked into it a little bit. I checked out this guy a little bit. So
all right, yeah. What'd you find?
He's a keyboard player.
So he probably had to write the orchestral parts for them.
It's not an orchestra, is it? I mean, I kind of realized that, and it's like, but he's played with like Celine Dion, Michael Jackson, Joe Cocker, Cyndi Lauper, Meatloaf. I mean, about in the last episode, he played on like Iggy Pop's Instinct, David Lee Roth, Eat 'Em and Smile. He played that.
So he has quite a pedigree, really. This is,
and then like, so basically, this is like, he's a keyboardist, so it's all keyboards, right? So orchestration.
He probably composed the actual like orchestral parts, under their direction, but
and it's he's also the guy who's on Book of Souls. It's the same guy.
Wow, all this time later. Well, he must have got a worse keyboard because
anyway, that's a little bit of not mystery, but something I was kind of, it was nice to find out that this guy Jeff Bova was, but actually only on Blood Brothers and Nomad, just those two songs.
On Nomad and not. Okay, whatever. I guess a lot of it, they call it one-handed stuff where it just Steve can, hold the chords and that's all it takes.
Right. All right. So we've done the artwork, we've done the production. Is it time already to go through the songs?
Yeah, it's funny because there is a lot of context for this album, but I mean, it's not that hard to understand. It's a comeback album, and it is the first 6-piece album, and is the first modern era Maiden album.
Okay, so actually, just before we get going, like, I just want to say, so far, this has been the biggest struggle for me.
More than
Yeah,
Matter of
more
Life
than
and Death.
yes, more than a matter of life and death. More than seriously, I don't know why. You know, it's just one of those things.
Okay.
I kind of postponed this episode, right, so I could spend more time with it to give it a fair shot. It was real tough for me. Just the way I came into it. I got into Matter of Life and Death. I grew to love Dance to Death. I love that record and Final Frontier too. This one, I spent maybe even more time with it than all of those. Well, we'll see what the result is of my time invested in listening to this album many, many times. So,
well, there are a couple songs on here that are accepted as classics by the Maiden diehards.
yeah.
And the first one is The Wicker Man.
Yes. There we go. The Wicker Man.
Now, that's one of my favorite movies, and that soundtrack by Magnet is one of my favorite soundtracks.
Isn't it amazing? I just had to show it. I'm not going to get a chance to show this again, so I thought I'd
no.
show it. Yeah. So does this song conjure up this?
Well,
it's your favorite movie.
So let me tell you.
All right, go on.
I liked this song when the album came out. I sort of begrudgingly allow myself to like this song now, but there's multiple problems with this song.
Yeah.
Okay. Have you ever seen The Wicker Man?
Yes, of course. It scared the life out of me as a young boy. I watched it on TV in England.
Oh, okay. So I don't know if you remember, but I've watched The Wicker Man many times. Nobody says your time will come in that movie.
No, true. Can I just say that line coincides with my least favorite part of the song, the bounce.
Yes. You could call that the Fear of the Dark bounce, but look, I don't understand why he's saying your time will come over and over again. I understand in the context of the movie, it's right before the execution, and he's basically warning that Lord Summersisle, may very well get his comeuppance in the future.
Right.
But it just drives me nuts that he's it, because it sounds like it's a quote from the movie, the way he just delivers it again and again. And I just think that's so weird and off-putting. It makes it feel very off-brand.
It's kind of sad because the opening riff's really cool, I think. The verses are kind of cool. The pre-chorus, do you like it? It sounds a little bit different worldish, like a little bit the refrain before your time will come.
So I don't love any of the parts, but I do kind of like the song, and I think the song makes sense the way it's built. So the first like Maiden bounce part that I can think of is the Fear of the Dark bounce.
All right. Yes. Yeah.
This one, it's much more obnoxious, and it has that stupid high guitar part going over it.
Sorry.
And do you love it?
No, that was another thing I meant to mention. Like, just that super tinny, like, like if they had like a nice twin harmony part instead of that.
Well, so, and this is like one of the problems, I guess, not just with this song, but it is that is a dumbed down version of like Iron Maiden, and it's definitely like tweaking it to still be basically Iron Maiden, but also to be like digestible for a new metal Ozfest crowd, because it's the bounce, it's the high, almost like, it doesn't sound like Rage Against the Machine, but the dynamic of the way that it's working there is almost like a Limp Bizkit or Rage Against the Machine thing.
Yeah.
Don't crucify me in the comments. I'm not saying it
reminds me of that too.
Literally sounds that way, but it's the same kind of dynamic. And the thing is, I do feel that this song did a lot for the band, especially, like I said, to introduce it to a newer audience. It's not selling out the core of who the band is, but to me, it is super lame. I still kind of enjoy it. They played it on the last tour, and I was like, that's nice, you know. And part of why it doesn't bother me is it's relatively short.
Yeah, I like it so much. I bought the single.
Yeah, I mean, to 45.
Yeah, it's a nice single.
And I mean, Bruce sounds good. You get the good. I actually really like the guitar solo section. It's a nice little, you know, little me, little you. So it's like it's a song that is sort of like hateable to me, but
I know what you're saying. Yeah, but also
it's sort of like it had to be, and it is a good first song.
And that's that the Piper at the Gates of Dawn thing, but no young people are gonna get that reference either, which I thought was kind of cool. But you know, that's kind of cool, right? But and then has that the whoa 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 the whoa ending, you know, whoa.
You know, I mean, they definitely wanted this record to sell in Brazil. And that's one of the parts I feel like is tailor-made for South American soccer fans.
I've seen a lot of live footage of this song, and people love it, you know, singing along.
That's the thing. I think to especially the Maiden diehards, like this is a classic.
Yeah.
So it is what it is, but I don't think it's really for either of us. Although I cheated. I wrote on the plastic bag here. I like I put an X if I hate the song. I put a O if I think the song is okay, and I put a check if I think it's one of the better songs on the album. And I did give this a check mark.
There you go.
Which means that most of the album is not even as good as this song.
Well, we're just getting started.
Yeah. Ghost of Navigator.
This is one of those ones I just didn't get at all. Went straight over my head at first, but it kind of worked its way into my brain a little bit. Kind of a good groove actually in the verses, and Bruce sounds amazing on this song. I think.
I mean, he sounds
quite like powerful actually. The verses, I really like the verses on this song. That kind
of I think once you get past that initial intro, this one does get going. And I think he sounds good in the choruses too. It is really strong. There are some this is like where the radio rock melodies really do start to pop up though. If you just, I'm not saying that it sounds like whatever Creed or something, but if you just pull out that melody, it plugs in so easily to a lot of those late 90s just big radio rock bands. And to me, that's a bad thing. To some people, they may be like, well, I don't care, or well, I like that, but that's always a liability. So it's like I'm sort of like trying to sift through those elements and find like the Maiden that's still in there.
Get good solos in this song. That little effect they put on Bruce's voice as well, I don't like. It's just they could take that part out.
One thing that I noticed about this album as a whole is now this is the first one with 3 guitar players, and I feel that the 3 of them are actually trying to like justify the 3 guitar player thing more here than on. So you would think that they would have a little trouble integrating it at first, and then as time went on, there would be more distinct like sort of 3 guitar interplay kind of things. But I actually think they've sort of dialed it back where it's almost like it doesn't matter if you're hearing 3 voices all the time on the more recent stuff, but on this, it's like they're all trying super hard to be like, okay, I'm going to do this and you're going to do this, and sort of hit like on the downbeats and I'll hit on the upbeats, and he's going to do the high stuff following the vocal melody. And you hear that a lot throughout this album, which is jarring because it's kind of like is what you want when you want to hear 3 guitar Maiden really be like 3 guitars, but actually at times I'm like, it's a little too much. And it's not even like they're doing anything complicated. It's just like, I don't know if it really works. It's not super bad in this song or anything, but that's one thing I noticed. Like the longer the album goes on, the more there's like 3 guitar players all trying to exist, and Steve on top of all of that.
Yeah. And then we're at the title track already, like track 3. I can't stand the vocal melody in the verses on this song.
Quite dull. It goes on for a long time. I think this one is okay with the fans. I think they like it. If I am putting on this album, I probably won't skip this song because I think it's sort of in the middle tier of
the
these
chorus,
tunes.
even though it's just Brave New World repeated over again. I think it's okay. It works okay. It's just the verse, that main vocal melody that I can't get into.
It runs awfully long though. They repeat it quite a bit.
Yes. And then that goes into one of the classics from the album, right?
Yeah, Blood Brothers is a hit, but not for me. This is the worst song on the album to me.
Possibly. Actually, I have one more.
Well, I get what sets people off about this song. They just love it. They love that, like, swinging our arms together and hugging each other. But boy, it's cloying. It's
when I'm sat here listening to this record, it's not enjoyable for me at all. But if I'd have been here, it might be a different story. But I'm not here. I'm here.
Is that Rock in Rio?
Rock in Rio. We'll look at this a bit later because it's a nice summary before and everything. So, but yeah, I get that it's a really stirring song when it's played live and everything. But when you're listening to it at home, it doesn't do anything.
Saccharine, just absolutely artificial. Ugh.
Yeah, sorry, everybody.
Yeah. Well, they don't care.
No. I don't think it's a really very controversial opinion, actually. I just no, it's not. But the good news is we go into the Mercenary, which is a shorter song. This is a Gers and Harris composition, right?
Yeah, and it's okay.
It's exactly right. It's okay. Like you kind of want more from it because it's a short song. It's a little bit. I don't know, like if you know the Leatherface album, the Stormy Petrel. Did you follow them that far?
I don't.
Okay. Well, if anybody out there, if you know the Leatherface album, Stormy Petrel, there's a song called Diego Garcia, and the chorus to the Mercenary and Diego Garcia are very, very similar. Very similar melody. For all you Leatherface fans, it's kind of interesting. I mean, it's really similar. But yeah, I kind of wanted more from one of the shorter songs on the record, but yeah.
Dream of Mirrors.
That's one.
This one takes a while to get going.
This is my personal least favorite.
I hated this song for a while, and then I did give this one more listen today, and as I was listening, I like the "I Only Dream in Black and White" section of it.
Really,
it sounds exciting. I don't know, but also this is, like I said before, this was the right album at the time, and it fit in, and it felt fresh, and it felt exciting, especially if you didn't know that much about Iron Maiden. But hearing it, now it just seems so dull and artless to me that I feel like I'm picking out like just pieces of songs, not even whole songs.
Don't you think the beginning is a little bit of a throwback to like Phantom of the Opera, like a little bit?
Yeah, I can see that
ever so slightly, but then it just goes straight out of that into that other bit, but actually kind of about 5 minutes into the song it kind of builds up a little bit of energy, but it's too late for me.
Kevin Shirley should have had a heavier hand on that. He should just said no.
But this happens a lot, but it's actually one of the songs from the album that they included in the set list. But this always happens. We always choose the different songs for the set list, but what do you do? The Fallen Angel, 4 minutes. It's a Smith Harris composition. What do we think?
I like this one.
Yeah.
It's not in my top 50 Iron Maiden songs, I don't think, but
yeah, it's got
it's a nice little ripper.
A little gallop, a little bit of a throwback. 4 minutes, we're in, we're out. It's okay.
Yeah.
And then, now we're back to another 9-minute song. Murray Harris, The Nomad, the title of Paul Di'Anno's album from this year.
I really want to give Dave Murray the benefit of the doubt always that he's up to something good. I don't know if it's the music in this one or it's just the constant, the way Bruce keeps saying nomad over and over, just so grating. I had actually forgotten this song completely.
Okay.
And when we started talking about doing this and I started playing this album again, top to bottom, I was like, this song, like I don't like this at all.
It's got that horrible kind of like Stargazer kind of Kashmir kind of, but it just done really badly. And this one has Mr. Jeff Bover on it as well, so he's in there as well. And it's a long song, so that was a tough one. I listened to it many times, but it didn't win me over, unfortunately. But that goes into a good song, I would say, Out of the Silent.
Yeah, I'd say that's my pick for the album, actually.
Yes, almost. I don't know, like it's cool. It's just a really fun song, like
I mean it. I don't know. I think it's the second single actually off this record, and it works better than Wicker Man. Although again, Wicker Man was the right choice for the first single off the album, but it's got a fun little melody. It's got like a nice gallop to it. This is another one where you hear like the guitar just doubling Bruce's vocal melody. Again, I think they're just not sure what to do with 3 guitars now, but it really works in this song, whereas other ones it's just like you don't need to do that. Like he can do it on his own. Yeah, I like, if I was gonna pull one song from this album, it would be that one for sure for me.
Which song?
Out of the Silent Planet.
You put it from the album.
No, I mean if I was gonna pick one song I like, if someone's like, make me a best of list, I definitely Out of the Silent Planet for this album.
Yeah, probably me too, actually. But okay, so like what happened with me was like, this was kind of like the carrot that was like, bringing me towards the end of the record, and I was heading for Out of the Silent Planet. But of course, you've got like one more song right after it.
Yeah, you sure do.
Yeah, you might be surprised by what I'm gonna say, but it's like for about 3 weeks, I was like, they should have just finished the album here. It's enough. But like suddenly, like I don't know how, but like suddenly this song kind of clicked for me. The thin line between love and hate, something just clicked. I kind of like it. I like it a lot. It's got kind of an unusual groove. The chorus is pretty standard. There's just like a little cool riff that's kind of underneath there, which is definitely like a Dave Murray thing. I don't know. I grew to really like it, and the ending, it kind of builds to a really nice crescendo climax.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
It's this one's really infected by the radio rock melodies to me. It's just it's like unavoidable. Like it just I don't like the taste.
There's one more thing. I don't know if you picked up on this or if it's just me, and probably no one watching this will even know what I'm talking about. Paintbox. Tell me that guitar tone at the end of this song doesn't sound exactly like Chelsea from Paintbox on Trip Trance Traveling. It's almost identical. In fact, I believe I like to think that he was a fan of this album, and there's a couple of licks in there even that are really, really identical.
I mean, so clearly he must have been a Maiden fan in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
There's no question. I can't see it any other way.
Yeah.
And the thing that some people say about Japan is Japan never forgets, and by that I mean Japan doesn't abandon bands that they like the rest of the world.
It was actually uncanny. It's so similar, and obviously Chelsea was probably influenced by Dave Murray's guitar sound before this, but just on this song, it sounds so similar right at the end of the song.
It seems likely. I believe it. I don't see why not.
If anyone's watching, you're a Japanese hardcore fan, you like Paintbox, and you can make it to the end of this album as a little treat for you.
And I imagine, for a guy like him, he was probably like, "Oh, like Maiden is back!" Like when this album came out, I mean,
I'm just speculating. I mean, he might never have even heard this album, but it is.
Hey, you know what? But the speculation rings true. So whether it's real or not, it seems likely.
I think I brought an insight to this song that maybe no other person who's done it.
Yeah, you are uniquely qualified to make this connection.
Yeah, I think it was interesting for me, and actually, I know it actually made me want to play this album again after that part of the song clicked. I know it's crazy, right? I didn't, but this is but I don't know, man. I was happy with it. I was satisfied and happy that I kind of grew to love this song that maybe a lot of people maybe don't like so much. So yeah, so that's that. 66 minutes and 57 seconds of the Brave New World.
A medium length Iron Maiden album.
It was difficult for me and was the biggest struggle so far. It does seem like the longest Iron Maiden album to me. But hey, I put in the work.
Yeah.
Should it?
What do you give it? Well, tell me about the tour. You got the DVD, right?
Oh yeah, let's do that. So usually I think this kind of sums up this, because this is kind of an historic show, right? This was like,
200 billion people were there.
Yeah, a lot of people. So this is the DVD, and then it's like maybe an Eddie. Have you seen this Eddie before?
I'm not familiar with that Eddie.
Maybe just unique to the DVD. You're gonna love this. Have you seen this before?
Well, yeah, because you can even buy this as an LP, and I have the music for it somewhere. Oh wow, look at that.
Look at all those people all over the CD and then the little pop-up stage.
That really is something.
Yeah, so very important
show. The sound on that is pretty good. It's a little weird in spots. It's like very dense at times, I think, just because there's a lot going on. But I mean, I guess that's the definitive document of that era, and it does have Klansman and Sign of the Cross.
That's right.
Which are both Blaze songs, and to me, the definitive version of those songs is actually from that disc. Bruce singing those songs really puts them in a whole new light. And that's actually what I think when I think of the Brave New World tour. I actually think more of the fact that they were playing like the two stone cold classic Blaze epics. I think also they probably do Ghost and Navigator, Wicker Man, Brave New World, the song, Silent Planet.
No.
That's weird.
Yeah.
Blood Brothers,
and the Dream of Mirrors, which is my least favorite song from the album.
Yeah, that's a tough one to do live too.
Right.
So six new songs, and then probably like 10 old songs.
Yeah, actually, this is really long. I think maybe this set was longer than the normal set list, maybe because it's a special gig, right? But
yeah, it's like the tour finale, I think.
Yes, that's right. I mean, this is a great DVD. I watch this sometimes. It's a good time.
You can buy it as a record, I
used to have the picture disc, Chris. It's terrible. I'm gonna reorder the proper black vinyl at some point. Yeah. So it's
the rebirth of Iron Maiden. What do we think?
I'm going to just give it a 5. I think that's my lowest score so far. I think
I'll give it a 6 because I think it's better than A Matter of Life and Death.
Okay.
But
yeah, we're a little different on those two, but yeah, fair score.
Yeah, it's middling material, but important for the time.
Yeah, the year 2000. This tour was called Metal 2000 in Europe, but then Brave New World in the States. They different names for it.
Metal 2000. I guess it is. That's what it was.
Yeah, and that's a very of its time name, but only in Europe. They didn't call it that in the States. So.
That would never fly here.
That was actually fun. I like doing these episodes because I've got to put in more work. I'm familiar with some of the other albums. Not so familiar.
Well, you've got some work ahead of you, my friend.
I'm ready for it, mate. I'm telling you, I've been training. I've been doing a little bit actually, little by little. Actually, not. Well, it's a secret. We'll get to those episodes. But next time, we're going to be going somewhere in time, right? That's the next episode.
Can't wait. A lot to talk about there.
I think so. That's going to be a good one. All right, everybody. Until next time, stay tuned. Take a look out for the next episode of Maiden, Piece of Maiden. Stay healthy and stay clean.